Hi there, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Rossy and today I'm sharing how to make this little Saint Joseph figurine in gold porcelain clay as part of our 2022 Advent Calendar. I hope you like this project. Let's get started. To get started, we're going to cut out the pieces from our template. I'm showing the ones you need to cut out here, so like the face, the beard, the hair, and this circle for the robe. We're going to start with the face so that can dry up a little first. And for that, we're going to measure 1/4 of a teaspoon in gold porcelain clay. We have the recipe on this channel. And just kneading that, forming it into a ball. Then you notice I flattened it a bit. And now I'm just separating, marking those features, so sort of a cheek, and then placing my cutout on top of it so I can mark the other features. So starting with the mouth, the sides of the lips, the nose, and the eyes and eyebrows. Just like this. And now this is just a reference, so now we're going to go in with my rubber brush and I'm going to add some more detail to those features we just marked. So I'm actually going to add those features in. So I'm working on the mouth right now, trying to add the lips. Starting with the lower lip. Just like this. And then always blending everything out so it's very smooth. And then going over it again. The top lip, we're not going to give it too much detail. And it won't be that noticeable since it's going to be covered by the mustache and the beard. I'm just working on the chin. And now we're just going to add a little dot of clay for the nose. I'm using a toothpick to add the glue so I don't add too much. And then getting that small nose. It's a little bit bigger than the one we made for Virgin Mary since it might need more clay to make it more noticeable given that he's going to have that mustache and beard. So we want it to be visible underneath all that. Just like this. And now we're going to move on to the eyes and start painting the white area. But before that, I'm just going to add some shading to sort of shape the eye sockets and the cheeks. So I am going to use orange or that peach color for all of this. Notice I'm going on the top part of that eye socket, so where the brow line would be. And then a little bit around the lips just so we can see the detail we just made. Just like this. It's very subtle, just highlighting the features. And now we can actually go in and add the white paint. So this is acrylic paint as usual. And I'm just using my liner brushes. Well, my liner brush. And then just following along those lines we made earlier from the cutout and trying to keep both eyes a little bit similar. So similar enough. Now that we have both eyes ready, again trying to keep them roughly the same size, I just let that dry. And while that dries, I'm working on the beard. So I'm measuring 1/8 of a teaspoon in brown clay. And we're going to get our cutout on clay. So I'm just stretching the clay out until we can fit that piece in there and then going all around it to cut it. So I'm just smoothing down the edges so it looks very soft. We don't have those jagged edges. And now I'm just adding the hair strands. Just a little bit of detail there. Try not to keep them too straight. So slightly more like a little bit like hair. Of course, you can go for the look you prefer. Now that that's dry, I'm going to go in and add the eye detail. So I'm going to continue painting. This is still acrylic paint, and I'm using a pinhead to add the little brown dots in there. We can also use any other tool that's designed specifically for this, but if you don't have anything, a pinhead works just as well. Once we have the brown area ready, we can use something that's slightly smaller than the pinhead. In my case, I'm using this tool. And just adding those black dots over the brown area without covering all of it. Just like this. And once we have that ready, I'm going to go in and outline the outside of the eye, but only on the top part. So I'm using that same round paint and my liner brush and going all around the top of the eye and a little bit to the side, to the outside. And we're doing the same thing on the other eye. Just like this. Now we have both eyes, and I can go back in and add the eyebrows. Again, using that same brown paint. I'm going to make them a little thick here. And now I'm just adding a little bit more detail so it looks like the eyelid. Just like this. And now we have to let this dry. So I'm just going to go over the top lip to give it a little bit more detail so it stands out. And now we're going to add the beard in. If you're a little bit worried that you might smudge the eyes, you can definitely wait for this to dry up. But since the paint is really watered down, it usually dries very quickly. And I'm just wrapping the beard around the bottom of the face, just like this. Now we're going to add the ears in here. And for that, I just made 2 small balls in the cold porcelain clay. Then attach them to the face. And then adding 1 small dot in the middle to make it look like an ear. Just like this. Now I'm getting another small piece of clay in that same color as the beard, that dark brown. Just a little bit. And we're going to measure it using our face as a reference. So I just shaped that into a ball and then stretching it out so it's thin on both ends. And then placing it on top of the top lip to see if it's a good size. Now in the middle, I'm just making that small line to make to get that mustache shape. Not quite cutting it, but it looks like I was going to cut it, so just stopping right before it separates both pieces. Added the hair strands there, and now we can place it where it goes. Adding a little bit of glue with a toothpick underneath the nose, because I want it to be slightly separated from the rest of the face. So I'm just getting that volume and moving the mustache around to place it where I want it to go. Just like this. You notice the mouth is only slightly visible. It's mostly just the bottom lip. Now we have the face ready. So we're going to set that aside and let it dry before we put everything else together. Now we're going to work on making the hands, because we also need those to dry a little. So I'm getting 1/8 of a teaspoon in that same skin color we were using before. Stretching that out, cutting it in half. Now I'm going to cut that into 4 pieces. But on one of those pieces, we're going to add half of another one, so his hands are slightly bigger. Now we're just rolling that up a little bit, making it thinner in the middle so you can get both these circle shapes on the outside where we're going to be making the hands. I'm just trying to keep them the same size here. And now I just go in and flatten both sides to get the hands. And I always try to make them at the same time so they look roughly the same size. And getting that mirror effect in. So now that I have the size I want, I'm just going to make a cut, sort of a triangle cut to get the thumb. There we have it. And now I'll make 3 more cuts to get the other 4 fingers. And remember just to smooth them down and make them round at the top so they look very smooth and sort of finger-like. Just like this. And now just going in a little bit underneath the hand to get that palm shape. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other hand. Once we have both hands, they're going to look like this. I'm going to make these a little bit more close, sort of like making a fist, since he's going to be holding a staff. So again, making it thinner on those sides are going to connect to the body, and then I can just set them aside and let them dry. Now while all of that dries, so the face and the hands, we're going to work on making the staff. And I'm going to need 1/4 of a teaspoon in a dark brown clay. You're going to stretch that out just like this. And I'm going to use my template as a reference again. So I'm just going to cut that toothpick. To take into account that it's going to have a curve at the top. So I am just wrapping that toothpick on brown clay. And then I keep kneading it so it's very even all around the toothpick. Remember, the toothpick ends right there, and then the rest of it is going to come back down in a curve. And I'm just adding a little bit of texture because it's made out of wood. Giving it that sort of wooden, rough look. Just by adding some lines. And once that's done, I'm just going to roll up the top. Just like this. And now we have a staff ready. And it's going to be able to keep its shape since that bottom part is completely straight and supported by a toothpick. Now we're just going to let that dry and move on. Now I'm measuring 1/2 of a teaspoon plus 1/4 of a teaspoon, and now I'm just going to mix both of them together, form that into a ball, and then this drop shape. Now I'm going to go back to my template just to use it as a reference and get the right size. Now on the bottom part, since as you notice it's kind of round, I'm just going to flatten it against the mat so it can stand on its own. Now we're going to go in with our tools and add the folds for the fabric. You can also use a toothpick for this, or even a crochet needle, and they both work just fine. You can also find tools that work for this on the ones that come for fondant kits, and they work just fine as well. Now on the top part, we're going to go the opposite way. Just a little bit there, and then I'm going to soften them. Now around the middle, I'm going to sort of mark the waist, since we're going to have a rope or bead or belt around here. And I'm just making a hole at the bottom to make it wider and a little bit hollow. And it's going to look like this. Now I'm just again going into those folds, adding as many details as we want. Same on the other side, just like this. And now we're going to make that little rope that I mentioned earlier that's going to go around the waist. So for that I'm getting 1/8 of a teaspoon on that darker brown. Same we use for the staff. Gonna cut that in half. And then stretch out one of those halves as much as we can. So it's going to be as long as we can and as thin as we can. Once we have it here, mine is 15 centimeters long. That's roughly 6 inches. I'm just going to fold it in half and start twisting it around. So just going all the way, twisting it together. And I'm going to keep rolling it and twisting so it gets a little bit longer, and now we have a little rope. Now I'm just going to wrap it around that line we made at the waist here, and I'm going to overlap them just a little, press them together, and let the rest of them fall, cutting it at the bottom so they're at the same length as the bottom of the robe, just like this. I'm adding a bit more detail to the rope on this part here. And once we have that ready, we can continue with the arms and the cape or tunic. For the arms or the sleeves actually, we're going to get 1/8 of a teaspoon for each. Kneading that thoroughly, forming it into a ball. And then again that drop shape. Trying to keep it round at the top instead of more like a triangle. Making a hole at the bottom to make it wider, and since this is where the hands are going to go. And then adding the folds, same one we did for the robe. And we're going to do the same thing on the other sleeve. Once we have both of them ready, we're going to measure 1/2 of a tablespoon in that same color we used for the sleeves, and we're going to stretch that until we can fit this cutout on it, and then we're just going to cut around our cutout to make a copy of it in clay. Now I'm just going down the edges to make it smooth, and it's fine if we lose that circular shape. It doesn't have to be completely even. We just need to make sure it's very thin on the outside. Now before we place it, we need to add the neck. And I'm going to use a toothpick for this so it can hold the head better. It's going to go and insert the toothpick as far as we can, just leaving enough space for the head. Now around the neck, I'm going to add a little bit of clay in this tan color again, same we use for the sleeves, to sort of make the color of the tunic or robe. But before that, I'm just going to cover the toothpick with the same color we use for the face and the hands, just like this. And now going around the edge now with our little color. Cut it together at the back, and then we can add the tunic or cape. I'm going to place it here and then start slowly adjusting it all around, wrapping it around the main robe. And then at the back, I'm going to make a cut because I don't want it to be too long. Just like this. And now again, just adjusting it, making it look like it's being affected by gravity, giving it that texture and the different folds, and then gluing the arms in place. So on both sides here. just like this. Try to make them look like a single piece. And now we can go in and add the hens. Just like this. And we're going to add the staff at once while we're doing this. In here like this. And making sure the hands are wrapped around it so they're holding it. And it's gonna look like this. Since they're only dried for a little bit of time, they're still movable and we can arrange them the way we need. I'm going to add a little bit more glue to the other hand. Try to wrap it on the lower part of the staff. And now we're just going to add some shading to the hands. Just like that. I use the same peach color I used for the face. And in my case, I decided to move the side for the staff since it's going to be on the right side of our nativity. So just take into account where you're going to be placing the pieces while making them as well. Now that I have it where I want it now, we can continue with the head. And before it dries, I'm just going to add one more curve at the top of the staff, right there, just for a nice look here. And now we can go in and add the head just by adding a little bit of glue on our toothpick. And then pressing down on it a bit on the back, just like this. And now we're going to measure half a teaspoon of brown cold porcelain clay to make the back of the head or the hair. So I'm using half to cover the back and then another half to sort of get that hair shape that we're going to use on top of it. So I'm just making that piece a little bit hollow since it's going to wrap around the back of the head. Adding a little bit of glue and then just placing it on the back of the head. We do need the face to be a little bit dry here so we can move everything around and adjust it as needed without damaging the work we already made. Now I'm just going in and added some details to the hair strands with the hair strands and then also to the back. And I'm just going to do that all around. Once we're done that, I'm just going to get my other half a teaspoon, stretch that out and cut that other hair piece we made earlier. Now going back in, adding the texture, following the same side we used on the back of the head. So if you made a side part on the left, doing the same thing here. And then thinning it down when the side is going to be closer to the face. And then trying to match where the parting is together so everything blends together nicely. No, I'm just stretching the sides of the hair at the ends of the hair until it can meet with the beard. And then adding some more hair strands in here so it looks very natural. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. In this side, I'm going to leave it behind the ear and always meeting it with the beard. Just like this. And now that's ready. Now we're going to measure 1/2 of a tablespoon of green clay and we're going to cut out another circle of these to make the top part of his tunic or cape, robe, his outfit. Once I cut that out, I thinned it down at the edges. Again, making those folds in here because it's going to be wrapped around the head and the shoulders. It's the same way we did it for the little Virgin Mary doll. And I'm just gonna place it on one of these little measuring spoons. I'm using the one where it's 1/4 of a teaspoon, and making it a little bit hollow so it can wrap around the back of the head. Adding a little bit of glue at the top, and then placing it around the head, just like this. And now slightly wrapping it and adjusting it there. Now it's going to look like this. Now St. Joseph has another one of those little ribbons or ropes that he has around the waist, around the little cape or hoodie or hood. So I'm just going to do the same thing one more time. Again, up to 15 centimeters or 6 inches. Stretch that out, fold it in half. You can even make it a little bit longer if you want it to be thinner. So in this case, since I use the entire 1/8 of a teaspoon, I stretch it up to 30 centimeters, so 12 inches. Now we make the robe. Now it's stretching that out and twisting it together, trying to make it as thin as we can. And to make it very thin, we just need to make more twists. So just keep twisting it, just like this. And now we're going to place it at the top of the head right here where I'm adding the glue. Now I'm just going to glue it in place, just like this. And I'm just going to cut where both ends of these rope meet. Now I'm just going to add that little bit of shine in the eye using white acrylic paint, and I'm using a pin again for this, so they're very small, just like this. Just adding that little bit of shine to his eyes, just like this. And now we have a little St. Joseph figurine ready. I really hope you've been enjoying these Advent Calendar gifts. Again, I'm always here to help, so if you need anything at all, feel free to ask it in the comments and reach out. My name is Rossy Rivera. Many blessings.